as I dive deep into the world of AI art to uncover a dark secret. Or perhaps it's not so secret. Not if you watch a lot of AI art and ask yourself, am I seeing art that stereotypes and objectifies women? The world of AI art has exploded in recent years with stunning visuals and seemingly endless possibilities. But as we marvel at the creativity and innovation on display, there's a critical conversation we need to have. How does AI art impact our understanding and representation of gender? The central issue is that AI art can perpetuate harmful stereotypes and objectify women. We've seen it time and time again. Algorithms that produce artwork that reduces women to their physical appearance or portrays them in overly sexualized or submissive roles. It's as if we're stuck in a time warp where the same tired tropes and biases that we've been trying to overcome for decades are being reinforced through technology. Like most people, I like my art to be aesthetically pleasing, and artists have always portrayed beautiful women in their paintings, drawings and sculpture. Because a beautiful woman with a lovely face and form is one of the wonders of humanity, pleasing on the eye and worth celebrating. And because we aren't all beautiful, it's also rare. And that makes beauty special. But what about when it's no longer special? When beauty becomes commonplace? Not on the street, that will never be the case, but in art itself. And what about when the only representations of beauty that we see are all the same? Same kinds of features, same kinds of form, similar sexualized poses and expressions, and the same cultural bias as to what constitutes beauty. What is that saying to those who view a lot of such images? And there's a lot of them around. Frankly, in AI art, it's hard to avoid them, especially if you want your images to be beautiful, and like most people, I do. So you'll see them in my work as well. It's hard to avoid them. And I notice when choosing between options that I'm definitely guided by these culturally dictated ideas of beauty. So even though I try to escape them, it's not fully possible. Sometimes, for instance, I have to work really hard to get a female subject that's both old and attractive, because in Midjourney's mind, those two things don't go together. And if you ask for beautiful, you always get young, unless you ask for mature or old. And sometimes I have to ask for ancient just to get to someone who looks over 20. Women typically come out young with pouty, come-to-bed lips, dilated pupils as if sexually aroused, a full face of makeup complete with false eyelashes, large breasts, long legs, thin waists and mostly Caucasian. And if you ask for a blonde, you'll get a much more sexualized woman than if you ask for one with dark hair. An example of another stereotype. Some of these otherwise stereotypical women do have something special that makes them truly beautiful. An amazing smile, for instance, that hints at some deeper quality. But many of them are just overly sexualized caricatures, and only the most skilled AI artists know how to get away from the stereotypes. This isn't just about art for art's sake, this problem. It has real-world implications. When we normalise stereotypes that evaluate female beauty on a narrow and highly sexualised range of attributes, it contributes to the idea that a woman's value is in how she stacks up as a sexual object. And this idea is at the basis of a culture that devalues and disrespects women. It's not only girls and women that are affected by the stereotyping, though. It also impacts men and boys and has a negative effect on society as a whole. It contributes to the amount of rape, for instance. Young girls and women who see the internet flooded with AI babes, as I call them, might get the idea that if they don't look like these impossibly beautiful women, then they're not beautiful, unless they look like that. Young girls in particular get the message that their bodies are more important than their minds and hearts, and that their worth is tied to their physical appearance. That's sad. Not only are we giving girls and women highly idealised and mostly unachievable standards of beauty to live up to, we're also giving men and boys unrealistic and very limiting expectations. If every beautiful AI woman we see is wearing makeup, then won't the expectation be that all women should wear makeup? How will boys look at girls who don't wear makeup? How will that make girls feel like they ought to be wearing makeup even at a young age? Will the boys disregard any girl because they don't look like all those AI babes they see all over the net? I'm constantly, for instance, having to write -- no makeup a negative prompt in my prompts for women. But how many of those who just play with AI art bother to do that? How many ask for an older woman or a woman from a different culture? Because of the cultural bias with which they grew up, they are delighted by these stunning AI babes, and so these stereotypes flood the net. The results of this kind of stereotyping can be devastating. Studies have shown that exposure to these kinds of stereotypes can lead to lower self-esteem, reduced ambition, and even increased risk of depression and anxiety in women. I don't think anyone has studied the effects on boys as yet, but I expect they're in for a lifetime of disappointment when their partners fail to live up to their unrealistic expectations. And yet, we're still perpetuating these harmful images through AI art. And I'm an AI artist, but I try not to. So how did we get to this point? How do AI algorithms learn to create art that can be so damaging to women and to society as a whole? Well, the answer lies in the data. AI algorithms learn from existing data, and if that data is biased, then the output will be too. And let's be real here, our data is biased. It's biased towards whiteness, maleness, and Eurocentrism. AI art generators were trained on what our society considers beautiful. And by our society, I mean Western society. So it's not surprising that the generators are reflecting society's biases, but they're also perpetuating those biases, and therein lies the problem. When we train AI algorithms on biased data, we're perpetuating those biases and amplifying them through technology. It's like taking a magnifying glass to all the worst parts of our culture and shining a spotlight on them. And what's worse, we're not even aware it's happening. We just assume that the technology is neutral, that it's objective, but it's not. For example, if an AI algorithm is trained on a data set that's predominantly composed of images of white people, it's going to struggle to recognise people of colour. And if it's trained on a data set that objectifies women, it's going to perpetuate those objectifying portrayals. It's a vicious cycle, and one that we need to break. A recent study published in the Journal of Artificial Intelligence Research found that AI-generated portraits of women were more likely to be sexualized and objectified than those of men. The researchers used a data set of over 100,000 images and found that the AI algorithm was more likely to emphasize women's physical appearance, particularly their breasts and buttocks. And that's why we get so many women AI images with huge breasts. Yes. Like balloons blown up. The images are striking. They're like something out of a bad 90s music video. But what's even more disturbing is that this is what we're teaching our machines to create. We're teaching them to reduce women to their physical appearance, to objectify them, and to sexualize them. So what can we do about it? Well, for starters, we need to diversify our data sets. We need to make sure that the data we're using to train our AI algorithms is representative of the world we live in, a world that's diverse, complex, and multifaceted. We need to add more women, people of colour, different ages, and marginalised communities to our data sets, and we need to do it now. In conclusion, the world of AI art is flawed. It stereotypes and objectifies women, and it's perpetuating harmful biases that many of us fought to cut through back in the 70s. But it's not too late to change course. While we, the artists, and those who are just playing around with the technology, wait for the training data sets to be updated, we can put a bit of effort into creating a more inclusive and representative AI art that celebrates women's humanity rather than reduces them to mere objects. How do we do that? Well, with negative prompts like no makeup and asking for a specific kind of beauty, or leaving out the word beauty entirely, since women generally come out looking stereotypically beautiful anyway. Essentially, we need to avoid leaving it up to the algorithm to churn out its stereotypical idea of what beauty is, and not accept the stereotypes in our choices. It's not easy, and your generations will take you longer, but your work will cease to look like everyone else's, and you'll be creating more socially responsible art. Think of your daughters, your sisters, your cousins and nieces, and help make the world a place that won't contribute to the likelihood that they might end up with depression and anxiety or eating disorders, and at the worst, suicide. Thanks for watching. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic in the comments. If you want to explore more about AI, be sure to check out my other videos on the topic. And don't forget to have a look at some of my actual art while you're here and, subscribe, all of that sort of stuff. Thanks.